Okay, so now we're going to continue writing equations like we did on the previous one, but I told you before that, okay, it goes through this point and has this slope. That's what the last chapter was about. I gave you the slope here, and I gave you some x1, y1 point. Now I'm going to give you that point, but I'm going to say, oh, by the way, the slope is parallel to this or perpendicular to this. So it'll be a slight difference, but it really is the same thing. So determine the slope intercept equation that passes through this point. Okay, so there's the point. So that's going to be our x1 and our y1. And it has to be parallel to 3 over 2. So let's go with y minus y1. So you get to start with this equation. Equals m bracket x minus x1. So we need our slope. So our slope is going to be parallel to this, which means identical. So we'll say 3 over 2. So that's our slope, 3 over 2. And then we have a point, which is -6 is our x1. So our x1 here is -6. And our y1, I can't remember, 4. That's our 4. So we've got y minus 4 equals our slope bracket x minus our minus 6. Okay, so that's actually going to be a positive 6. So maybe I'll write that. Y minus 4 equals 3 over 2 x plus 6. So I can bring this 3 over 2 in. So y minus 4 equals 3 over 2 times x is going to be a 3 over 2 x. And 3 over 2 times 6, well, this is, remember, this is going to be over 1. So 3 times 6 is going to be 18. 2 times 1 is going to be 2. And this thing will be a 9. So I can then get the y alone here by adding the 4 over to this side. So y is equal to 3 over 2x. 9 plus 4 is 13. And so that is our equation of the line that has a parallel slope, so the same slope, so 3 over 2, and goes through that point. And so the next one is the same point. So the same point is -6 and 4, but we have a perpendicular slope. So we start with y minus y1 equals m bracket x minus x1. And so y minus, or y1 is 4, equals m, don't know that, x minus x1 is -6. Okay, so what is our slope? Well, our slope is perpendicular to this. And this is a positive 3 over 2, so our slope will be a negative, and then we'll flip the fraction to 2 over 3. So that's really important. So it didn't actually say what our slope was, but it's -2/3. And again, this is going to require a plus sign. So x minus -6 would be an x plus 6. And again, we're going to multiply this fraction in, so we're going to have to remember that there's a 1 there. So -2/3 times x is going to be a -2/3 x. And -2/3 times 6. So -2 times 6 is -12. So the numerators multiply to 12 and the denominators multiply to 3. Now -12 over 3, remember that is just a 4. 12 over 3 is 4. And so we on the left here we have a y minus 4. So we can add a 4 to this, add a 4 to this. Now be careful how you write this. So these can cancel. You have a -2 over 3x. It's not 4 plus 4 is 8, because remember there's a negative here. So it's a -4 plus 4, which is 0. And so we don't even write the 0. We just say, hey, it's a negative 2 over 3x. So there you have it. Determine the slope, yeah, perpendicular and parallel. Now, question 4 here is very much the same, but it kind of incorporates all the little tricky things that could happen. So in the first one, I said, hey, it goes through this point, negative 6 and 4. And now I'm saying it goes through this y-intercept. Now, the y-intercept has a point. This point is the y is 6. So, meaning the x would then be 0. Now, how do you know that it's 0, 6? Do I have enough room here? Yeah. So, it says that the y-intercept is 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the y-axis. I cross right here. That point is 0, 6. And so you have to know how to graph a point, and you also have to know what a y-intercept is. Well, the y-intercept is where you cross. This is your y-axis. Wherever you cross it, it's called a y-intercept. And so I have a y-intercept. I put a little dot there. And that point, that dot, is 0, 6. So I could have just said it goes to the point 0, 6. If I was writing a test, I could just say 0, 6, but this question wants you to know that the y-intercept is 0, 6, so it makes it a little bit more complicated. And the other one here, these ones told you, oh, it had a parallel slope to this, 3 over 2. But I don't even know what my slope is here. I can't even read it. Sometimes if you're given a graph, like 2 over 3x plus 6, you're like, okay, well, there's a slope. Parallel to that would be 2/3. Perpendicular would be, flip it, 3 over 2, but make it negative. But I can't even do that here because it's written in some weird way. I need to get this y alone. So it requires way more work here. So let's move over the 12. We're going to add the 12 to the other side. So I have a 3x minus 4y equals 12. And then I'll minus 3x over. So then I've got a negative 4y equals, I'll write the x first, negative 3x, and then the 12. And then I can divide by negative 4, all of these things. So y equals, negative over negative is positive, 3 over 4x. 12 divided by negative 4 is a negative 3. Okay, so it's parallel to this. So if it's parallel, we know that our slope, this is our slope, our parallel slope would be 3 over 4. All of that work. So in the first question up here, we just quickly wrote it. Oh, parallel, 3 over 2. Here, I couldn't do that. I had to do a bunch of work to come up with the equation and make it 3 over 4. Now, luckily for me, these are identical. So when it asks me for perpendicular, I will just say flip it to 4 over 3 and make it negative. So that one at least I can just immediately do. Now, I haven't even done the question yet. I need to come up with the equation of a line. So I'll do that here. So y minus y1 equals m bracket x minus x1. And do I know what the y1 is? Because that's our point. Of course, I didn't write it. x1, y1. So our y1 is 6. And lucky for us, the x1 is 0. So x minus 0. And our m here, I forgot, was, what was our m? 3 over 4. So I can multiply that in. So we have y minus 6 Now 3 over 4 times x is just going to be 3 over 4x. 3 over 4 times 0 is just going to be a 0. So we can add the 6 to the other side. Y equals 3 over 4x, 0 plus 6 is 6. So the math there was actually, when I saw this fraction, I thought, oh, we'll have to see out the remember numerator denominator multiplying, very much like the one above. But then when I saw 3 over 4 times 0, I was like, oh, that's actually much easier than I thought. Now for this one, we have y minus y1. We've got to come up with the equation again. M bracket x minus x1. The slope is perpendicular, so I already flipped that to be 4/3 and negative. And so I've got y minus y1 was going to be, y1 was 6 equals m bracket x minus x1, which is 0. So I can bring this in. Y minus 6. Negative 4/3 times x is a negative 4/3 x. And negative 4/3 times negative 0 is still going to be a 0. I usually go plus 0. And then you can add the 6 to that 0. So y equals negative 4 over 3x plus 6. So there's the question. I think this is actually an extremely time-consuming and fairly complicated question. To recap what I did here, I had to figure out what my slope was. So it said, hey, it's parallel to this thing, but this thing didn't tell me anything. So I had to use some algebra skills, figure out what my slope was. Turns out it was 3 over 4. And then I could say, well, if I want parallel to that, then I'll do 3 over 4. If I want perpendicular to that, I'll do negative 4 over 3. And once I had those two slopes, I could just plug it into my point, which again was not entirely obvious because it didn't just tell me 0, 6, which would have been super helpful. Instead, it said y-intercept of 6, so I had to kind of graph that to make that point 0, 6 and see exactly how to do that. And then I could plug in my point and my slope into both of those and do a little bit of algebra. So super time consuming. This is a question that would really tell me if you knew or understood everything, because almost everything is baked into this one question.